What is going on? I want to welcome you from half court to the 1-year anniversary special. I am your host, Sean Murphy, and today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. Today, I have the pleasure of having Rod Beard on the show. He is one of the best Pistons beat writers in the business. He's been in the Detroit news for 20 years. He's an outstanding beat writer. Originally got his start doing high school stuff in the area, but then moved on to Michigan basketball. Now has been covering the Pistons for 5 years, and he has a really good sense of the Pistons and what's going on with their culture and their future. And we had a really good conversation, so really looking forward to that. I am going to get to that pretty shortly, but first I did want to talk about a little bit about the game of basketball. Specifically want to dedicate a little bit of time to my guy, Cade Cunningham. So let me set the stage for you, okay? Cade Cunningham, 20-year-old, was being questioned of whether or not he was a good draft pick. People were comparing him to the likes of Anthony Bennett, to the likes of Greg Oden, to the likes of other draft busts that we have had, saying that the Pistons should have drafted Evan Mobley, or the guy that they were really saying at the time, Jalen Green. By the way, Jalen, where you at? Anywho, that's besides the point, because Cade Cunningham has been putting up sensational performances for the Detroit Pistons, and this past evening he put up a critical 34 points. In addition to that, getting 8 boards. In addition to that, getting 8 assists. Cade Cunningham was all over the court, was doing everything for the Pistons, and he was the reason why we were even in this game. This is already his career high, and he is the only player to get these kind of minimums in a game. The only other guy doing such a thing as a rookie is Michael Jeffrey Jordan, and the difference is Cade Cunningham being 2 years younger than Michael Jordan was at the time. So safe to say that the Detroit Pistons hit on their draft pick. But in addition, I think it is safe to say that the Detroit Pistons also won the NBA draft. They also have a guy that can help them contend in the future. This is the number one guy that they can truly build around. And this is a guy that a lot of guys around the league are respecting and saying is legitimate. That's something that's high praise for a player like that. In my opinion, it is time that we reopen the Rookie of the Year conversation because of the fact that Evan Mobley has been playing really well. He has been a really crucial part of their team. He's been elite defensively, and he is a big reason why the Cleveland Cavaliers are winning a lot of games. However, he's not the primary guy on that team. Cade Cunningham is the number one guy in the Detroit Pistons. He's being asked to do more, and currently is putting up numbers that no other player in the history of the league have put up. He literally put up a stat line tonight that no other player has ever done in the history of the game. And that's something he's doing. He's rookie year. He's getting better is the scary thing. He's efficient. He's making his teammates better. He's making stops. He got 4 blocks and 2 steals. He's all over the court defensively as well. This guy is insane. He was more of an interior presence than his starting center was tonight. Isaiah Stewart, he had 0 points, which is not something that can continue to happen. Especially the thing that's weird is that on Sunday, he had his best offensive performance of the year. He had 20 points. He shot 8 of 8 from the field. He was efficient. He was attacking. He looked like he actually wanted to be there on the offensive end. Whereas tonight, it looked like he was scared of the matchup. For whatever reason, Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets were just intimidating to him, and he did not put up the same stat line. So something that's really disappointing. But overall, if you are a Detroit Pistons fan, you have to be nothing but optimistic about what is happening going forward, especially with performances like that. Now, coming up this weekend, the Pistons will be facing the Orlando Magic in Orlando. Be sure to be checking out my work on Woodward Sports, by the way, because I am writing quite a bit about these games. I pretty much am covering the team at this current point in time for Woodward Sports. So definitely be checking out that. I will be putting that in the links in all of the videos going forward because there's a lot of work being done. But with that being said, it is time to hear from Rod Beard. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time from Half Court. Be sure to subscribe. Thank you for making it happen for the year. Here's to another year, baby. Here's my conversation with Rod Beard. What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court today being Wednesday, January 26th. I am Sean Murphy, and today we have a special treat. I am joined by, he is a beat writer for the Detroit News of over 20 years, covering Michigan basketball and now the Detroit Pistons since the year 2015. He is the Detroit News' own Rod Beard. Rod, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Just coming off this West Coast trip, finishing up, and it gets to you sometimes. So I'm
Yeah,
happy to be getting home in a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. That was quite a quick road trip, right? 7 days, 4 different cities, all different playoff teams that you're seeing out there. Is there a favorite city you have, real quick, Rod? Like of all the cities you get to go visit throughout the league, is there one that you look forward to going to every
No,
time?
it's really two. It's Toronto and Miami, and Miami obviously for the weather and just a good city to walk around. And Toronto, same sort of way. The weather isn't always nice if you go in the winter, but if you go to Toronto in the summertime, it is a wonderful, wonderful time, and just so easy to go across to Windsor, take the train, and it's maybe 4 hours or so to get there. But there's Wi-Fi on the train. It's a nice ride through the countryside. So highly recommend if anybody wants to get to Toronto.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are probably two of the cities I would expect, to be honest with you. That's absolutely awesome. So Rod, like I said, you've been covering the team for quite a few years now. You've been through a couple different regimes at this point. So kind of my first question for you would kind of be, obviously as someone that's around the team, this year kind of not going how some fans might have expected, right? With us getting the number one overall pick in Cade Cunningham. I think there might have been a sense that we're going to be doing something a little bit different than what actually happened. I think the play-in tournament was something that fans were hoping for this year. So my question for you is kind of what do you think is the general sense of the front office's attitude towards what this season has been like? I mean, obviously, I know some fans haven't been thrilled, but I think especially of late, they just came off a really difficult 4-game road trip that they played really competitive in. They're 500 or just under 500 in the year 2022. What do you think Troy Weaver's feeling right now about the team and what the young guys are doing?
Well, I think Troy Weaver is looking at the progression in a couple of guys, and Saddiq Bey especially, that through all the injuries and through all of COVID, um, he's been the one that's kind of stepped up. At the beginning of the year, he was in a shooting slump and not really playing well. But since Jeremy Grant's been out, he's moved into that go-to guy, the
Yeah.
main scorer for them. And I think that's the key takeaway you've got to get from this season, is that you can't measure and you can't gauge the progress that they've made, because all of their guys haven't played together. It's just early in the year, the Kelly Olynyk injury, then you got the Jeremy Grant injury on top of that. Then you had COVID for like a week and a half, where it hits teams differently. But for them,
Yeah.
it was 7 guys at the same time. So you can basically throw those couple of weeks away. But that was where Hamidou Diallo and Saddiq Bey really started to come into their own. So you can see that looking forward, what you wanted to take from this year was, hey, which pieces are fitting for the long-term rebuild? You see
Yeah.
that Saddiq Bey definitely is. Hamidou Diallo is trending in that direction. Isaiah Stewart has come on. So you can't look at wins and losses and say, hey, this team is underachieving right now. There's a specific reason for it.
Right.
But you can look at the individual development in some of the guys and say, hey, these are things that bode well for the long-term future of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's absolutely spot on, because I think, like you said, I think the expectations of us competing or winning as many, like winning more games to the scale where we would be in the play-in tournament, especially with an Eastern Conference that got as good as it did, as quickly as it did. I think it's something that, as we've seen the season go on, I think we've realized that that's not as realistic. And I think, to your point, seeing what pieces that we have and where they fit and who those guys are going to be long term, I think, to your point, has been really, really important for us. And I think with that, I think there's certain guys, like you said, that we've seen that it's obvious that there's long term fit here, like Saddiq Bey. But now a guy like Jeremy Grant, who has been out with injury and is someone that at first was out of the question. We're keeping around. We want to keep around for the long term. Now with the surgence of a guy like Saddiq Bey, Jeremy Grant is looking a little bit more expendable, and teams are really talking about wanting to get him. Obviously a lot of the reports are suggesting that teams really want Jeremy Grant, and it seems like he's going to end up being on a different team by the trade deadline day. What do you, is that the sense that Detroit's kind of coming to that reality, or is there a reality where we very much can see Jeremy still in a Pistons uniform beyond the deadline, do you think?
Well, I think it's can be either or. I think they realize that there's value. Like I said, with Saddiq Bey, that he moved into that power forward position, that 4 spot that Jeremy Grant occupied when he was a 3. So it showed them, hey, he can do this and he can carry that role of being the number 1 guy. So if we needed to or wanted to trade Jeremy Grant, the opportunity is there. But I think they're looking at the price and making sure they're getting an equal return for that. And the reports out there, I mean, the one was just so far-fetched that it was for Ben Simmons, that it's Bey, Grant, Olynyk, and a first-round pick. I mean, trade offers like that just don't make sense because the Pistons don't have a first-round pick. They're not going to give up Bey and Grant and Olynyk that they just went and spent so much money for in free agency. And those are 2 of their top scorers in Grant and Bey. You don't give that up for Ben Simmons, who's not a scorer. So it's kind of the silly season now where you're going to see trade rumors, trade offers, and things like that. I think they're going to look and check the market for Grant and see if they can get something like 2 first-round picks or a first-round pick and a young guy and some salary filler if it comes down to that. But you want to try to stay on course with the rebuild that you're doing. And I don't think there's a way that they trade Bey unless it's a superstar type guy and a multi-time all-star or a franchise centerpiece, because they're so high on Bey right now and what he can do. And he's under a rookie contract, and that will carry you for another 2 or 3 years without having to pay him big bucks just yet.
Oh, exactly. And I think it's pretty obvious that we're in a position that it seems as of right now, if there's any guys on the Pistons roster that we can count on being there in the long term, it's guys like Cade Cunningham and Saddiq Bey. I would say it seems to me like, correct me if I'm wrong, but as of right now, it seems like those are kind of the 2 kind of cornerstone guys. And with that, one of the guys that we've been kind of trying to figure out more about is Killian Hayes. And obviously, as of the time of recording, last night was the first game back from his hip contusion. He's coming off of the bench. Obviously don't know if that's just because of his injury or if that's just Dwayne Casey making a change and wanting to see what Killian does coming off of that 6th man role. Do you think there's legs? Do you think Killian's going to continue coming off of the bench for a little bit? And if so, do you think we can expect that being a good thing for Killian's game this season? I mean, obviously he hasn't played 10 games consecutively yet, right? I mean, what's the sense do you feel like about Killian Hayes and where his progress has been so far this season?
Yeah, I think that's the big question mark here is just where he fits in all of this, is because when you drafted Killian, you didn't know you were getting Cade, and Cade has turned into a ball handler, a facilitator, a scorer. He's kind of all of those things wrapped in one. And you don't want to cut bait on Killian just yet. You want to try to find a role for him. And even if it is off the bench, I think that's something that works, that he could be the 6-man super sub. What I like about him is that he brings a defensive presence and just the size that he can body up. And if you're doing a lot of switching, he can switch on to a small forward or power forward and kind of hold his own. He's got good build and good strength with that. Just you want him to be, if he's going to start, he's got to be more of an offensive presence and be able to be a threat to score the ball. And some folks have said, hey, send him down to the Motor City Cruise and let him try to figure some things out there. That's just not going to happen. You don't send high first-round picks down it would be like the Tigers sending Max Scherzer down if he got into a slump and they sent him down to Toledo for 2 or 3 stars. It's just not going to happen. You have to face major league pitching. And in Killian's case, you have to face NBA level talent in order to figure those things out. So I think they're going to move him around and just from the injury, you can't really tell just yet if he's going to be in that second group. But he looked fine last night. I think it's not about who starts and it's about who finishes games. And that's what fans sometimes get tripped up on is, well, these guys have to be starters, and if they're not starters, then Dwayne Casey's making a mistake. Well, no, you find guys who have the right fit. And just like last night, he finished the game, which is more important than who starts the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing too, to that point, is I think we're finally seeing, Dwayne Casey kind of playing a little bit more with what Killian in lineups looks like. Like, obviously he was we saw quite a bit of that 3-guard lineup last night with Corey and Cade and Killian. And kind of speaking on that, a lot of fans, to your point, a lot of fans are kind of quick to anytime we see whether it's a Killian Hayes struggling or whether we get in a lot of these slumps, a lot of the times, fans, and I know that you see a litany of takes or a litany of reactions from fans on social media, but I think one name that does get a lot of criticism in the Detroit camp is Pistons coach Dwayne Casey. Now, personally, I think he's had this team fighting all season. I think we've made a lot of progress where we're at right now. I think that's exactly what a front office is looking for as far as what to expect from a young team like this throughout the season. Where do you feel like, how do you think players view Coach Casey in that locker room? And what about that dynamic do you think us as fans don't really get to see as much? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it is that he's kind of a no-nonsense guy, but he's a teacher and a developer. What you don't see a lot is the relationship with the rest of the staff, and all of that kind of goes together. You're not going to have Dwayne Casey without his assistant coaches and without his development coaches. That's not going to be a long-term thing. It all goes together and it's a package. So you can see just that Isaiah Stewart, those guys from last year, those second-year guys really value his wisdom and the faith that he has in them, but they understand that it's not a straight line and it's not going to happen overnight that you're going to be an NBA player. They know that he knows what he's talking about. He knows the NBA, and fans may not like some of the sets that he runs or the combinations and groups that he runs together, but he's a good coach. He's respected around the league by players and by coaches. I mean, that's the part that people don't actually kind of pay attention to. Is this guy was a coach of the year. He helped to build up that Raptor squad. And so the development that the players see is they know they're going to get better under him. They just have to commit to it, and it's just going to take some time. And that's probably the backside that fans don't always understand, is that they look at results. And like we said, this season, in terms of wins and losses, it's not going to matter in the long-term rebuild. It's just going to be that incremental progression that you're seeing from some of those players.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've seen, especially for a team that at the beginning of our rebuild or the restoration process, mind you, the thing that was prominent was how little we actually had as far as young talent went, and how quickly Troy Weaver, but also with the development of Dwayne Casey, we've been able to turn that around to have as many young pieces as we do have, and as many shots as we've had to the lottery board, mind you, has been absolutely crucial. And, kind of to that point, this season isn't going to matter in the long term of wins and losses because of the fact that more than likely we're going to be in that top 5 draft picture again come June, come July. Obviously, a guy that the Pistons have been linked to is Smith out of Auburn. Obviously there's been a lot of guys that have been thrown around. What is your sense of what Detroit is looking for out of a draft prospect going into the summer?
I think they want a guy because it seems that their long-term rebuild is getting shorter and shorter. That window now is looking like not next season, but the following season is the one that they really want stuff to start coming together. So it's not a project guy that's going to take some time. They want a polished guy who can come in and really start to develop in the same timeline with some of these younger guys that they've got. So if you're looking at a Chet Holmgren, he might take a little bit longer than a Paulo Banchero or a Jabari Smith. Those guys look ready to hit the road immediately.
Yeah.
So if the pick comes out that way, then it is what it is. I mean, you take the best guy on the board whenever they end up selecting, but you've got to understand the trajectory of this rebuild is they want to be competitive next year, and at least be vying for the play-in game, I would say, next year. And then the year after that, be looking at the playoffs and having some of these guys really mature. And Cade Cunningham in 2 years will be in his third year. The guys from last year will be in their fourth year. So they'd be ready to contribute on a bigger level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're so close to that point where we can, next year start talking a little bit more seriously about something like the playing game or something like playing more meaningful basketball as the season goes on, to your point. And I think that's definitely going to be something that we that we can look forward to for sure. Rod, I do want to respect your time, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. I guess like the one, if I had like one last question for you, do you think as we're heading towards the trade deadline, I mean, obviously I know it's hard to tell what Detroit's going to be doing. From your personal perspective, do you think this is going to be a trade deadline where we see Troy Weaver go out and be aggressive and try and make deals get done? Or do you think this is something where we could see Detroit just hold packed and kind of expect a quiet day when it comes to that deadline and what's going to transpire?
Yeah, I think you could see some fireworks if the right deals come along and you get teams that get desperate and sort of say, hey, for a middling team and a contending team, hey, this Jeremy Grant could be the guy that could push us into being a top 4 seed, if that's important to somebody. Mm-hmm. Then, yeah, you could see them trying to pony up and put up a lot of assets. And the Pistons are just looking in asset acquisition right now is the key for them. So if you get a team that gets desperate and it's going to give you a lot, I saw some rumors about the Knicks and maybe they're doing a Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks and a pick and Obi Toppin. If you get something like that, I think you go for that because you're getting a pick and the Knicks pick isn't going to be top or bottom 5 like you would see for a lot of other teams. But if you could get a middle first round pick and Obi Toppin, Nerlens Noel, who could be a real patchwork guy for you to fill that center spot, and then another young guy like Alec Burks who could help you with off the bench too. You just acquire all those assets and you figure it out. But it's just going to be where teams are and where they think Jeremy Grant can take them. If he's going to be their second best scorer, third best scorer, if the Bulls are going to throw in somebody like a Patrick Williams, then you jump on that as often as you can. So I think it's just going to be where teams are, what they're willing to offer, and if that package kind of suits where the Pistons want to be in 2 to 3 years. But definitely you want a first round pick and you want a young guy that you can build around also.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to that point, I think there's a lot to look forward to. And it's definitely going to be an exciting season and exciting things are coming ahead. And I will say to anyone that is not following you, Rod, they definitely should be. Your articles are fantastic. People can find you on Twitter at Deet News Rod Beard. People can also find your work on the DetroitNews.com. Anything else that people should be looking for, Rod? Anything else that you want to plug?
Just a couple of stories in the next couple of weeks that'll be pretty interesting. I think it's just the reminder here is just don't look at wins and losses, because even this week, that Sacramento win was probably one of their best wins of the year.
Definitely.
Just in down 10 in the fourth quarter with 3 minutes left. That's a game that they lose 10 times out of 10 earlier in the year. And even the Jazz game, they came back and they made that a game. And then last night in Denver, down 16 in the third quarter, that's a game they just don't. They're showing that they're starting to build and have some pride about themselves, that when they get hit in the third quarter, now they're able to come back and score some points. And again, this isn't at full strength. There's no Kelly Olynyk last night. There's no Jeremy Grant. Those are your 2 highest paid players. And you're doing it with these young guys. And Trey Lyles has had a really good season in terms of playing out of position and doing a lot of things that you didn't know that he could. So he's going to be a fit that just a guy who's a gamer that comes out and he's probably given a little bit more than I expected. So all of that's going to be in grades. The midseason report will be in the paper on Wednesday and online probably tomorrow or Wednesday. But the midseason report, the grades, all of that stuff, and you can get a good take on where the Pistons are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll definitely want to be on the lookout for that. Hopefully they'll be out by the time that this is actually out. And if it is, I will definitely be linking that here. But nonetheless, I will definitely be putting a link to Rod's work because Rod Beard, you're absolutely top notch. I love looking at your coverage. I love reading your articles. And you're definitely a must follow on Twitter for sure. You're definitely one of the best beat writers we have in the league. And Rod, I just appreciate you being here and taking the time doing this. Seriously, thank you so much. And yeah, you give a lot of great insight to this team. And I think to your point, just be patient and let's just enjoy what we have and let's just keep watching this team grow. But for now, definitely be on the Detroit news because Rod Beard is definitely going to have a lot of good things to say. So Rod, seriously, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, Sean. Let's do this again.
Definitely. Let's do this again. Would love to have you on for a little longer next time. And hey, who knows, maybe next time I'm down at the LCA, I'll have to come by and meet you for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
All right. Awesome. Well, Rod, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you next time.
Absolutely.
Thanks.